Hi, I'm about to show you a tutorial of making portraits with denim. So what I have is these are my materials and tools. So I have a scissor for collaging. These are scissors to cut your jeans. So I'm using squares, and yeah, I'm using squares as my shape to make a composition of a face and a portrait of myself. So it's a self-portrait but stylized with denim. I have glue. Wood glue is fine. Sometimes I use a glue gun which you use like glue gun sticks inside. I have a glue gun. I have a brush and thread or yarn. Well, a needle. So I have different variations of needles. This small one, and also a thick one for thicker material. So you'd want to use a thick needle for thicker material, because when you're using your hand, it will be much more easier to penetrate through the material instead of using a very thin needle. And also thicker yarn or thicker thread is better suited to use when you're stitching things together. It holds your materials better. So these are the materials that you're going to use. So the process is, I like to explain the process now. So the process is actually getting the form of your portrait. So what I use is a thread, which I cut, and I sort of have a feel of what I can get with a thread on the canvas, So depending on the image that I'm going for, So these are mostly self-portraits. So now you will see mostly my self-portraits you identify with my ears, my pointy ears, and bold look. And so I just stylize and have fun with the denim, just to create the composition. At the end of the day, it's a representational artwork, which doesn't necessarily have to be very realistic. I feel like the most realistic would be myself, original copy instead of an artwork. Here we have to express ourselves. I express myself more, I should say. So yeah, so using thread is kind of tricky to use, sometimes put on your canvas. So this is unprimed canvas, Sometimes I enjoy using unprimed canvas because, it's easier for me to do this using the yarn's friction with the canvas itself. But it's a portrait of myself, maybe. I have that already in my head for so many times. I've done it so many times, so it's just easier for me to just, build it up. So as you can see, that will be where the shoulder will be. This actually also shows me the position of different material, where they're going to be at, and also I think maybe we should just go a bit bigger with the face, since we have, canvas, so we don't necessarily have to be stingy with the, space that we have. Let's do that big. So obviously this is not attached to the canvas. So now it comes a process of having to make this actually be on canvas, So it's a very sensitive process that I enjoy. I think you can never do it in a rush. You always have to do it with so much patience and sensitivity. And also, I've worked with, like, when you work with smaller pieces, it becomes even more challenging to have to concentrate on having to create this face without it moving and what you want. So this is my form that I'm going for. So just brush it down with my glue. This is a very sensitive, like I said, it's a very time consuming. It can be when you're working on bigger pieces. It does move sometimes, but you just quickly. The reason why I say, like, you don't have to stress so much about it moving, particularly now, is because it's like sketching. When you start sketching, you don't necessarily start with the final image already, so you build it up. So that's what happens with collaging. You build up your image. So from even the beginning of the build-up process of the materials, this is where you start building up your artworks. When your art or your portraits become so textured, you'd want to consider that your ears are in line with your eyes, so yeah. So while we wait for it to dry, we just choose our material and how it's going to build up this, image. So this is where now you start thinking about contrast. An image is not an image without defining the light and the darkness of the composition of the image itself. So I create shadow with dark denim pieces and lightness with my light pieces. And sometimes I love things that I have a pattern, sort of. It gives me some sense of, and especially if it's linear and geometric, gives me a sense of base to trying to explain continuity, from one side to another, in terms of material. Allowing it to flow, like having this line flow to the next one. And some aspects of the jean, like your zip would be probably your mouth, the place where you combine the jean, where it's mended together. I use it very much for places like here where you have to create like your defining line from your neck to your jaw. So I decide if I have to put it on top of the line or aside or on the side, whichever one works. But I still love my line for now. I don't think I want to take it out yet. So I'll just put it here and measure that one out and cut it. And cut. So now I'm creating shapes that will distinguish the face, neck, and shoulders. So obviously, the dark blue side is your dark side, and this side is the light side. So you just play around with that, and I'll start playing with how, that blue will end up here when balancing out your composition. Having, you use your rule of threes, how your textures are balancing, just your image not to be off and stuff, So, and also I like going very minimal because when using denim, it's very dense. So there's a lot of, you can go wrong very easily with just doing too much and being overworked. So I like letting the lines also speak for themselves. They have their own unique, not unique, but their own personal touch to them, and how you look into them, their own aesthetic too, and how they look too. You can actually go and see how the attachments are, instead of just having just the collage of the glue. So as I continue. So sometimes I use, like I said, a glue gun. A glue gun is very fast to use, but also working fast can take out the fun out of things. So I find so much remedial time in doing this, because it gives you a sense of, you don't know what you're doing, but you're being so precise about it. It's kind of like naive to want something so perfect without even knowing what it is at the end of the day. So hence, I actually choose not having my artworks very realistic. We have drawings where you draw realistically, when you're doing some other stuff, project and stuff. But I feel like if I had to talk about myself, why would it be so realistic anyway? Whoever is realistic about their stuff, like to the highest definition of it, I'm just finding some balance and making sure like the spaces between, allow each element here to breathe and not to be clustered together. So these shapes have to be quite similar they kind of have to repeat with each other. I think that's maybe the secret also with having to put different kinds of shapes together. That when you start having them repeating, they start creating a rhythm of shapes, and it creates an interesting image. So basically, it's like putting puzzles together, if you might say. But now you have to create those pieces. And try and put them together to make an image. And now we play a game of eliminating some stuff, because maybe you might find that it's too heavy, or there's certain things that you don't like. So obviously using a machine will be easy. That's what I use now lately. It's faster and easier, and you have more options of stylizing your artworks. But also, I also enjoy these ones where I just use my hands. They become more close to the heart, I should say. Process and way of handling the materials that you need to adhere to, making sure that it stays without creases, how you handle your artwork afterwards, and also like using the right material, because some material, if it contains some acid, it actually just destroys your artwork with time. So I always use non-acidic glue, non-acidic paper. Bear in mind, like, this is done indoors, and when you start going outside and doing it, it becomes a challenge. Because of you're working with things that can move. Okay, now that you have your stuff in place, you just have to wait for it to dry up a bit, and then prepare your needle to do the final touch-up. So that So when you stitch, it's normally like the same way that you do with how I started, but now you can now be using this to sort of give me a direction of what's needed, and it's not too much of it, so it's a running stitch pattern. So I just have to look where I can stylize this. Sometimes, you'll use the canvas too, because also fun, it gives you that unity with comes one with the canvas. So I see immediately that works, as it is. So I'm going to revisit that, and then just to have something that will go along with it. It'll be probably something there. And maybe one by the ear. So that's when I come in and I start sewing. Well, sometimes you'd go without having glue, and when you have like yarn and needle, like you can always go back and use that. But also, you can use it interchangeably with having to embellish it with stitching afterwards. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm just waiting it to dry up, and then so long I'm making the canvas lines. And just to protect the stitch, I'm using the glue again. Just add another layer to the stitch and the thread that we used when we started. And I'm finished.